So, this is our first episode of what I'm reading.
Yes. I am Vinny. This is my boyfriend, Tom.
I'm Tom.
So what books are you going to be talking about?
Well, these are my Christmas books. They're not all strictly speaking Christmas, but they all had something to do with it for me. So, we've got Little Women by Zume Alcott, which the first half of the book is bookended by Christmases, so that's why I kind of included it. It's set during and after the Civil War of a little family, and the father of the family has gone off to war, and it's just kind of the girls hanging out, and they make friends with the rich neighbor across the way. They're a relatively, they call themselves poor a lot, but they're not destitute. They're definitely like a working class family.
Okay.
As you saw in the movie, because we watched the Greta Gerwig film, which is fairly accurate to the book. There's some stuff that they skip over because they have to, pretty much a lot of it is word for word, the dialogue. And then we have Nosferatu by Joe Hill, which is the story of a world-jumping human vampire who sucks out the life force from children by taking them across into a different dimension that is created by his own mind, called Christmas Land, and allows him to stay young forever. So the Christmas Land connection is why I decided I wanted to reread it for Christmas.
All right.
Then we have The Nine Tailors by Dorothy L. Sayers. This was recommended to me by my great aunt and uncle when they heard that I loved Agatha Christie. And it is a very Agatha Christie sort of story. It's a British murder mystery from the 30s. And the detective in this one is Lord Peter Wimsey. And he happens to... his car... he gets into a car accident in a small town in Britain, and it's New Year's Eve, and the local parish is short a bell ringer because he's sick, and so they need someone to ring the bells for the mass. They have This book goes very intricately into the mechanics of bell ringing, and it just so happens that Lord Peter has experienced bell ringing, so he decides to step in. On the way out of town, then once his car is fixed, he happens to meet a stranger and gives him directions, and that's all we hear about for a little bit. And the narrative skips several months. So another person has died in town, and so they're digging up a grave to bury this person, and they discover a body already in the grave that's not supposed to be there, with a battered face, and the hands have been cut off. And so the local priest or rector summons Lord Peter Wimsey, hey, so we didn't know that you solved mysteries when you came in here, but we have a mystery for you. So he comes back to solve the mystery. And so it takes place from New Year's of one year to Christmas of the next. So it actually turned out to be more Christmassy than I thought.
And what do we have after that?
This is The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. It's a children's fantasy novel. It's the first of his Dark Materials. I had never read this series, but somebody actually gave me the book, and I don't remember who now, but I finally decided to read it, and it is great. It is a really good kids book. The world is very interesting. There's fighting polar bears that talk.
Ooh.
Everybody has their own like little personal demon that comes with them. They don't spell it like D-E-M-O-N. It's a different spelling, and it's supposed to be just like more like a companion.
Okay.
It's not like, it has nothing to do with the devil. So when we start the story, we meet this little girl, and she is alone at Oxford College. It's set in a quasi, like, there's some landmarks that are the same in this world that from ours. And she basically intervenes in a scheme to poison her uncle, and from there is catapulted into a actually like very complicated plot about attempting to remove people's demons for like it gets pretty crazy, and it goes to very dark places for like a kid's book. Very well done. And then we have The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is by C.S. Lewis.
Probably of all the stories here, that one's the one I'm most familiar with.
Yeah, we just rewatched that movie, and that again is also a very accurate movie version. They added a few things this time. And they showed some stuff that on screen that was off screen in the book. But yeah, it's very accurate. 4 siblings are relocated to a country house because of the Blitz, and slowly discover a portal to a magical world hidden in a wardrobe.
Cool.
Yeah. It's funny because The Golden Compass and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe are almost polar opposites. Now, there is like a... The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is very Christian. Like, there's a lot of overt Christian imagery in it. Yeah. So, like, Aslan is the Jesus metaphor. Like, there's a lot of stuff like that, and the fact that Santa Claus is in it, which is why I concluded it as a Christmas book.
Because that one little scene.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to read some Christmas books, so that was kind of my just sort of chose like some random ones, and I didn't have a Christmas Carol here, so But then The Golden Compass, on the other hand, I had always heard was like very atheist, and I see kind of those undertones in there. Like the Vatican is one of the villains of the piece. Like literally just straight up the Vatican. That being said, it's not as pronounced as I kind of expected it to be. And the Vatican is not the only villains. Like there's a lot going on in that one. The main character's parents are actually like really shitty.
How so?
Well, this is getting into more spoilers for that book, but I guess we'll say spoilers for The Golden Compass. So, the main character, I believe her name is Lyra. She starts off at Oxford and then is taken away by a strange woman who has been abducting children. The first scene that we meet her in is she abducts a child using her her monkey demon. The demons assume the shape of... When you're a child, the demons can shift shapes, and they turn into different animals or whatever based upon your mood. When you become an adult, they tend to stay the same. They stop shifting. So this woman's demon is a monkey, and the first scene that we see her in is she kidnaps a child, then shows up at Oxford to take Lyra away, and Lyra goes off with her for a little bit, is staying with her, and is taught things by her, and then decides she's going to leave. Oh, is it my move or yours?
I'm still trying to decide.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And she happens to be at a party, and basically somebody at the party, she pretends to know more than she does, and basically wheedles out of some of the other people that wheedles out some of the other people that the woman that she's staying with is the head of the board that they've always been afraid of, that's abducting children.
Oh, check.
Oh, shit.
Or checkmate.
Oh, well, you need to say it.
I should have said it right.
Yeah, okay. So
I'm still learning chess.
I take back that move then.
Yeah.
I'm a little distracted because
I was too, don't worry about it.
Alright.
So it is my turn then, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now you were saying about the book?
So she basically figures out that this woman is kidnapping children, and so she just basically walks out the front door. There's a little bit more to it than that, but she leaves, she goes back to her people, and then finds out that her uncle has been captured, and so sets out to save him, and finds out from this group very quickly that the woman that she's been staying with is actually her mother. And that the man that she's been told is her uncle is not her uncle, he's her father. So then she sets off on a grand adventure to the north, and she makes friends with a talking polar bear who was tricked into losing... Okay, so there's a whole group of polar bears that live as part of a kingdom. And he decided to leave that and went to a town of humans, and they were afraid of him, but they wanted to use him as a pack animal, and so they got him drunk and then stole his armor, and so now he's kind of helpless and bound to them in servitude. So Lyra kind of helps him find his armor, and then that frees him from their control, and then they peace out and go and try and save her uncle, or save her father. It's a very interesting narrative too, because there's a lot of her father has found out about the existence of parallel universes. And so basically both sides of this argument that is the church is saying it's blasphemous to talk about these other worlds. And her father is well, fuck that, I'm just gonna do what I want. I'm gonna study this and get into one of them and see what I can do. And we find out toward the end of the book that he's really a very ruthless person. I should have seen that. But yeah, so it was a very interesting book. I'm glad that I finally got around to it. And I look forward to reading the other two books, because it's a trilogy, so there's two more books to come, and I have them.
Alrighty then.
I know. But I happened to pick up one of them for $2 at the Iliad, the third one, and I was like, I already have the first one, so I should just get the second one.
Local bookstore.
Yeah. If you live in LA, check out the Iliad bookstore. They're awesome.
I've been there myself. I like it.
Mm-hmm. In fact, the Nine Tailors is also from the Iliad. Little Women is from Mom and Dad's basement. Little Women is one of Mom's favorite books, or at least I know that she loved it when she was little. Which is one of the other books we're going to talk about is Dune by Frank Herbert, which is one of my dad's favorite novels. So it's kind of fun. We have Mom and Dad's favorite books, and then one recommended by my great aunt and uncle.
What would you say is the best story out of all these? Well, from your personal opinion.
I think it's probably Dune, but I literally just finished that book as we were going to record. The reason I consider it a Christmas book is the new movie version of Dune was supposed to come out this December, and obviously it was pushed back because of COVID. So I decided to finally read the book. But yeah, I think that one's probably the best book of the bunch. But I really loved all of them, honestly. Like, they were all really great books. But Dune is incredible. Like, I always heard it was really good, but it's nuts. It's a very I'm excited that a book like this exists, honestly, and I can't wait to read at least the next two, because I know the next two, like, Dune has a lot of books because the original author wrote 5. 3 of them are kind of like the same story, my understanding, and then like the next 2 start a new story set in the same universe. But then the author's son started writing like prequels and sequels and in-between quels. And so there's a really lot of Dune books. So I don't know if I'm going to get that deeply into it, because I'm only going to read when I'm enjoying it. If I stop caring about what's going on, I don't, like, the lore stuff is great, but like I don't care about that so much. It's only if I'm enjoying the book. I have yet to actually finish the Silmarillion. I may do that at some point. The Silmarillion is J.R.R. Tolkien's like lore book on Lord of the Rings, that explains the history of his universe. But I did read the equivalent for A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin, so
And how was that one?
That one was pretty good. That one's called Fire and Blood, which was the book that everyone was kind of annoyed that he put out because he's not done with the main series yet. But it's the first half of a history book on the ruling dragon family of Westeros. Is it my move or yours?
It's your move.
Oh, okay. Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe always kind of had a special place for me. Like, I got the Narnia books when I was little, and I read them multiple times each. Except for A Horse and His Boy. I think I only read that one once because I found that one boring.
Which of these books do you think you could read over and over again?
Maybe Dune. Nosferatu. This was my second read through, and that one I fell into very easily. But Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe I read a lot as a kid. I'm not sure I could read that one over and over again as an adult, though. But yeah, most of them were very. They're all really well written, though. I mean, like I tend to only read books that I enjoy, but they're all very. These ones especially, I felt like they were very good, very well written. The Nine Tailors took a little bit to get going, because the first 100 pages or so is basically just, oh, my car broke down. All right, well, get ready to learn everything that you ever wanted to know and everything you didn't about ringing bells in a cathedral. And so, like, until they found the dead body, I was like, I don't know about this one. But once they did, then I ended up reading. Actually, I might have, like, I think once I got to where they found the body, I think I read the rest of that book in a day. But it took me a real long time to get to that point where they found the body.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. I want to talk about spoilers for the Nine Tailors because this was a really interesting one.
Do tell.
So I'd have to actually look at it. I don't know. Like, this book is.
Now it is my move, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
I'd have to look at it, but I'm not sure which of them Dorothy L. Sayers or Agatha Christie was writing first. But they're writing around the same time, and when this one came out, Agatha Christie had already been writing for 15 years or so. But they have very similar sorts of style. Like, both of them have. Well, okay, like I've only read this one Dorothy L. Sayers book. I haven't read any of the other ones, but based on this one and having read a lot of Agatha Christie, they have very similar, like, plot structures. Which is, there is an entangled web of shit going on that everybody has, like, a little minor secret, and then of course there's the person who committed the murder. And so the trick is figuring out what relates to the minor secrets and what relates to the murder. So there's a lot of red herrings. The Nine Tailors. In the Nine Tailors, we find out that there was a big to-do in this town a few years ago because this necklace of jewels got stolen and was never recovered. We find out that one of the household servants, he was the butler, and this criminal kind of teamed up, and they committed the robbery. So the inside man passes it to the outside man. That's the way it's supposed to go, and then the inside man runs away. Now, the outside man gets caught. But he doesn't have the jewels. and he claims that the inside man didn't give it to him, and that he made it cry sooner than he was supposed to get him to leave. So there's a bunch of he said back and forth, and nobody's really sure exactly what happened. So no one's sure what's happened with these jewels. And like at first nobody thinks that anything's involved with it. But they come to realize there's a lot of back and forth, and so they're trying to figure out who the dead body is. Because the dead body has been disfigured, obviously, to prevent identification. And so it turns out that basically both guys are in town. One of them faked their own death, so everybody thinks that they're dead, but the butler's still alive.
Check. Still learning.
It's okay. And now I don't remember which one was which, but one of them did end up in the grave. Oh, I do remember now. Okay, so the outside man they catch again, and he basically got tricked by the butler again. To come to town, and he never got the jewels again. But the butler, it's the butler who's in the grave. And, good. So there's a big basically the butler's back in town because he hid the jewels in the church. So he's going to go get the jewels. And while he's in the church, one of the townsfolk surprises him, and he has married. I don't remember exactly how she was involved, but he's married a woman who was involved with the previous case, and so he thinks that this thief, the butler, is in town to blackmail her. Oh, I remember. Okay. She was his husband, the butler. So now that the butler is alive, really, their marriage is invalidated, and if anybody found out, that would make their children bastards. It's been several years since this incident, so...
and it's not good.
Yeah, so he's decided that he's going to pay off the butler to leave town and to not make trouble for them, and he doesn't want his wife to know that he's alive and that their children are illegitimate, technically speaking. So he chains him up in the... so there's the church, then there's two different panels of the tower. There's the lower panel where the bell ringers pull on the ropes. And then there's the upper panel where the bells actually are. And you don't want to be up in the bell ringers aren't up there because it's very loud up there. So they pull the from down there. So he chains them up by the bells. And then he falls sick. And you moved, right? So it's my move?
Yeah, your move.
Okay. So he chains him up by the bells, and then he falls sick, and so he left him with some food, but and he went to go get $200 to pay him off to leave, but before he can like pay him and have him leave, he falls sick, and then they ring the bells for New Year's Eve into New Year's. And check. And and so the bell ringing kills him. Like, it basically like causes internal bleeding because he's so close to these bells and they're ringing.
He didn't actually hit the bell, it's just the sound.
It's just the sound. He's so close to the bells and they're ringing for so long that it just kills him. And so now he's dead. And the like brother, I think it's the brother of the guy who has chained him up there, is like he tells his brother, hey, go take care of that guy, like, thinking, he needs food, I've been sick, like he needs food and drink. And his brother goes up there and finds the guy dead and thinks that his brother did it and is like, shit, I've got to cover up my brother's murder. So he bashes the guy's...
Who are you going to call?
So he bashes the guy's face, cuts off his hands, and then puts him in an empty grave that that they then dig up and find. So at the end of it, where Peter Wimsey is just like, well, you mutilated a body, but he was already dead, and your brother didn't actually kill him, so technically there was no crime here that was, like, murder level, so... So we're just gonna, like, pretend this didn't happen, right?
What murder?
It reminded me a lot of, there's a Sherlock Holmes story called The Blue Carbuncle, which is set at Christmas. And that one has a similar sort of like resolution where the crime is kind of forgiven. So in that story, this guy, he steals a jewel called the Blue Carbuncle, and he ends up having to stuff it inside a Christmas goose, and so now he's trying to figure out which fucking Christmas goose he stuffed it in, and so like Sherlock Holmes ends up like figuring out the whole thing, and he's like, I could send you to jail for this, and that would be what it would be. But I've decided I'm not going to, because I think that if I don't send you to jail, that you'll never do anything like this again, because you'll be scared shitless of me and me catching you again, and that you're going to be a straight citizen from here on out. And he's like, yeah, I will. And he's like, okay, cool, so Merry Christmas. That's kind of what it felt like. The Nine Tailors felt like. I loved it, though. It was really good. But it was just so like... when I realized it was the bell that had killed him, I was just like, oh my god, that's so great. Like, that's so great. I love it. Um, So Joe Hill, we haven't mentioned, is Stephen King's son. And Nosferatu is very King-y. Like it's set in the Kingverse.
What do you mean?
It's very similar to Stephen King's works. It's very like the whole concept of the world jumping is very similar to The Talisman, which I'm rereading now. Actually, because of Nosferatu, I was like, oh, okay, I kind of want to reread that book, which is where King kind of starts doing that. I think The Dark Tower, the second book, might have come first. I'd have to actually look that up, but it is squarely set in the Kingverse because there's a moment where they bring up a map and it shows like magical locations throughout the United States, and one of them is Pennywise Junction in Derry, Maine, obviously referring to it. So all connected.
Now, with Stephen King's books, is there like a common thread among them all? Like, is it all within the same universe, or are they pretty different from each other?
They're all kind of in the same universe, except sometimes they're set in alternate universes. So they're connected by the Dark Tower, which jumps between alternate universes. So like King's fourth novel, The Stand, which is considered by a lot of fans to be his best, is about a plague that destroys 99.4% of humanity. And that one is set in an alternate universe to most of the other ones. Oh, that was good.
Gotcha.
You got me. You did get me. I didn't think about that. I knew there was a reason I wasn't taking that pawn.
Well, I already made a few moves that I regret.
Yeah.
But it's not over yet.
Not over yet. So I mean, there is like, alternate universes within King's work, but most of them are set in like the same work, and they'll have little references to other books. Like I forget which book it was. Maybe it was Insomnia, but one of them mentions that the main character from another book committed suicide.
Like another Stephen King book, or just a separate book entirely?
Another Stephen King book. There's a more recent one that I loved, 11/22/63, and the premise of that book is that this school teacher
Check.
time travels through a portal in a restaurant closet to the late 50s, and decides he's going to try and prevent the Kennedy assassination. Anyway, as like a test, he decides he's going to go back in time and prevent one of his students from his father beating him and like giving him brain damage and like killing some of his family, and that happens in Derry, Maine. So the protagonist of 11/22/63 goes to Derry, Maine, and meets the kids from It. Very briefly, like they just have a cameo. The movies tend to cut those sorts of references, and especially references to the Dark Tower. For better or worse, like there's one book, Hearts in Atlantis, that's actually really tied to the Dark Tower because one of the main characters in that shows up in the Dark Tower. And the movie version, so within the context of that book.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
I think the picture's in the shot. I'll move that down.
Okay. Yeah. Well, whatever.
First time.
Yeah, it's fine. Within the context of the book Hearts in Atlantis, this man is being chased by centuries of the Crimson King who want to kidnap him to take him to another dimension in order to use his psychic powers to break apart one of the beams holding up the Dark Tower, which is the center of all reality. And in the movie they were like, the CIA is hunting him. I really love, so the protagonist of Nosferatu, I believe her name is Vic, something with a V, I think it's Vic. She has the same power as the villain, and she can use her bike to travel across a covered wooden bridge that no longer exists to wherever she wants to go to find things. So it starts off with she uses it to go and find her mother's bracelet, I believe it was, that she left in New Hampshire. And then as a teenager, she decides to go looking for trouble. And so she has a run-in with Charles Manx, who's the guy who kidnaps the kids and like feeds on their life energy. And he gets put in the hospital after a whole showdown, and then the story kind of pauses for several years there. Vic has a kid herself. Check. And she develops a lot of substance abuse problems. That is actually a common theme throughout, especially King's work, because he struggled with substance abuse so much. But it does show up a bit in Joe Hill's, and he only has 4 novels out, and then like a couple of short story collections and a graphic novel series. But yeah, like Vic is just such a well-written character. Like she feels very alive, and there's a scene about halfway through the novel. where she well, okay, so ever since her confrontation with Charles Mack, she's been getting calls from Christmas Land, the little kids who he's kidnapped, and have turned into like these like once he sucks their life energy out, they become like little vampires themselves. And so they're calling her on the phone all the time, but like they're calls from another dimension. So like other people are like, "You're crazy. You're not getting phone calls." And she sometimes doesn't believe she's getting phone calls from the other world, but sometimes she knows that she is. So she basically she gets drunk and she puts all of the phones in the oven, and then she decides she's going to go out for something, but she forgets to put on pants. So she's wearing boots, and she lives in Denver, so it's cold out. So she puts on like coat, but she's still in her panties and she's wearing boots, and then she like goes outside and she decides to steal a tricycle, because she wants to get her back to her bridge, and she thinks that that's the way to do it. And then she ends up smashing a store window. So then she goes, but like it's so funny because like okay, the passage itself is kind of funnily written. That was a mistake. The passage itself is kind of funnily written, but like it's also like really heartbreaking at the same time, and it feels so realistic. What piece do you want? Your queen?
Yes.
So like the characters are very believable, and you don't. I don't know. Like I mean,
Check.
I mean, it makes sense coming from King that he would write very literary sorts of horror, because that's what King writes. But she's just such a compelling protagonist and very vulnerable and damaged. I guess, so I'll switch to Little Women. One thing that struck me, because I'd seen the movie before reading the book, one thing that did strike me about it is it's very interesting seeing it in order, because you don't know a lot of the things that are going to happen in the future that Greta Gerwig has kind of cut in between. And so it's a very different experience, because for the first half is like mostly very cute, and then the second half is like, well, okay, both halves have their sadness, because the dad is missing from the first half. So if you don't know that he's not going to come back, that he is going to come back and he's going to be fine, then there is that aspect to it. Like you might be worried for him for that first half, but then the second half is when they're transitioning into adulthood, and then they lose one of their sisters. So I mean, like that half is a lot less whimsical than the first half. but it's really well done. It's also interesting because the novel is very episodic, which I guess that makes sense. Like looking back at the movie, I'm like, yeah, I guess it is a kind of an episodic movie, but it flows so well that I never thought about that, I guess.
Check.
But I enjoyed both. I love Jo March. She's the she's the she's not the oldest.
Check.
But younger by a year than her older sister, and she wants to be a writer. So I really connect with her. She's great. But I love all of them. They're all great characters.
Check.
Oh, I can't go there. I can go there.
Thought I had you.
I mean, you do, but I'm forestalling the inevitable. So I guess I'll move to Dune, since I haven't really talked about that one. I'd seen the David Lynch film, because I love David Lynch, so I really wanted to, see it, and I didn't understand what was going on at all, so I'd say the film kind of failed in that regard. I do kind of want to rewatch it and see if it's any better now that I've read the book. Probably not. My uncle and my dad are big fans of the series and will ramble about that movie and how much they hate it. So I'm gonna assume that having read the book, it's not gonna make that movie better. The basic premise.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Doesn't that put you in?
Oh yeah, I can't go there. You're right.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking. I have to go here. I can go here.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
You're
I
good.
can go here.
Wait a minute. Something's weird here.
The basic premise is our protagonist is Paul Atreides. He is the son of a duke, and he has been trained since birth to he's been given assassin training, basically. He's been given mental training from his mother that allows him to semi-control people with the sound of his voice. They call her a witch a lot, so he has kind of witch powers. And then he's been trained in fighting styles. It's a sci-fi story and it's set in the future. They all use these fighting suits that have shields on them. And so it's very intricate because it goes into the specifics of how you fight with the suit, and you have to put the knife in slowly because then that tricks the shield into letting it in. There's a lot of really great details like that, but basically there's
Check.
there's a bunch of political squabbles going on.
Check.
And the Emperor has decided to have the Atreides take over um, mining of spice on this desert planet, with the intent that at some point there's going to be like an uprising and they're going to die. So he's basically using this inner family feud to get rid of the Atreides.
Survey says.
So so the family has to move to this desert planet where if you don't wear a suit outside, you're gonna die. Like you need to wear a sort of suit that recollects your moisture, so that you can drink it. And spending more than like a few minutes outside is deadly. And the main like export of this planet is it's called spice, and it's a sort of drug, and it's an addictive sort of poison that like sharpens your mental abilities, and it's really weird, but like it but like everybody wants this fucking spice. Because a lot of the Empire is like addicted to it. Well, anyway, so now to get into spoilers for Dune, like the trap that they have been forced into is sprung. Paul's father is killed, and he's forced to flee with his mother into the desert, and becomes like a religious like prophet, because he's apparently like fulfilling a bunch of prophecies, and so he uses these people to like get back his dukedom, and steadily becomes like this like scary god warrior thing. It's really interesting. I'm also really curious as how they're going to be able to film it well, or if they even can. Because so it's very much internal. Like it jumps around between whose mind we're in within scenes. And so we get to see what each character is thinking about and how they're cutting through the subtleties of what's going on and particular conversations and that sort of thing. So like, it's a complicated sci-fi story that requires a lot of special effects and world building. It's a very internal, focused narrative. It's really good. I don't know. I haven't read anything quite like it. It's interesting too, because it's sort of for me kind of seeing the missing piece between like a lot of like fantasy, especially stories that I love, like Game of Thrones. I think definitely George R. R. Martin has read and was influenced by Dune, because to some extent, A Song of Ice and Fire, his Game of Thrones is almost a mixing of Dune and Lord of the Rings, because it has the sci-fi, it has the fantasy aesthetic, but Dune is very interested in the interplay between different cultures.
Check. Checkmate.
Yeah. Good job.
There it is.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
We usually hug, but there's a camera in the way, so we'll hug after. Well, I mean, do you have any questions about any of these books?
No, I mean, you pretty much describe them better than I ever could.
Well,
I mean, the only one I can really say that I'm most familiar with is Chronicles of Narnia.
yeah.
Because, well, earlier how you said there's a lot of like Christian allegories and themes to it. Well, yeah, I was, as you know, I went to a Catholic elementary school, so I can see why one of that book was on the list.
Yeah.
And the whole Sons of Adam, Daughters of Eve thing too.
Yeah. C.S. Lewis's work is almost entirely Christian allegory, at least the ones that I've read. And I've read the Chronicles of Narnia, and then our roommate Ian lent me a couple of his other books, and those were both Christian allegories as well. I didn't really think about how heavily that was until I started reading these as an adult. I plan to reread the Chronicles of Narnia now as an adult, because this is the first time I'm reading one of these in probably 10 years. Probably, it might be more. But yeah, it's an interesting series. Did you read these as a kid, or did you just
Which
see the
ones?
movie? Narnia?
Read it in elementary school, then saw the movie later on.
Yeah. I like that movie. It's good.
Mhm. Well, I guess that pretty much wraps it up then.
Yeah.
This was our first review. Yeah, hopefully we can do more in the future.
I was thinking maybe we do one a month.
Cool with me.
All right. And this is our Christmas tree.
Yes. So beautiful. It doesn't need any water.
Yeah.
All right. Peace out, everyone.
Bye.